What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time excitedly bringing you some Baldur's Gate 3 early access coverage. This video is really just meant to be kind of my general impressions of early access, how things are coming along. It's not going to be like a big critique of it as a whole, because again, it's in early access, so don't expect like a proper review from this. Just my first impressions, thoughts, kind of stuff like that, just kind of gathering it together for you guys. So first thing I want to mention right off the bat is just to answer the question and kind of give people, I assume, why you would click on this video to begin with. Should you buy this in early access? Well, that depends. If you just really like Dungeons and Dragons, you're a big fan of what Larian Studios does creatively like I am, then yeah, you definitely should. The $60 isn't that bad for that. So the caveat to that is, if you are playing this because you want a well put together story, or you want to experience the story that Baldur's Gate 3 is, honestly, you should wait. There are a lot of bugs, there are a lot of problems, things are not polished. Larian themselves have said that multiple times. It's an early access title for a reason. Also, you only get access to like the first act right now anyway. So right now, if what you're looking for is that polished experience because you want to play a Dungeons and Dragons game, then you should probably pass on this. It's rough in a lot of spots, it really is. Beyond that, my thoughts on the actual game. So starting where the game starts, the game actually starts with a cinematic, and then it shows you in a first-person view being infected with the tadpole from the Mind Flayers, which, if you don't know that by now, I guess you didn't pay attention to the marketing, but basically the premise is that you were abducted from Baldur's Gate. Who you were before that is up to you, but you were abducted by a Mind Flayer and infected with a tadpole so it can begin the process of morphosis? I'm terrible with words. It's a ridiculous word. The process by which that tadpole is going to turn you into a Mind Flayer. Now, it actually shows you in first person getting infected, and that's when the character creation actually starts, which I thought was a nice touch. Like, they stop the cinematic mid-cinematic so you can make your character, and then it kind of begins again after that, which is, it's different, but it's cool. So, character creation itself. Now, I will make a separate video about this that will actually be a little longer and more in-depth. Not like literally one of my in-depth character creation videos that I like to make, but simply a more focused video about character creation, but not everything it has to offer, because again, the game is in early access, and we'll do that when the game actually launches. To sum up character creation quickly, not everything that's going to be there is in there, so there will be more races and things like that, and possibly classes, added as the game progresses, but what's there right now isn't final, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There will be more added. The main thing I want to mention with character creation is simply that the more you know about Dungeons and Dragons character creation, the better. So if you're waiting on this game, in the meantime, I would actually suggest that you pick up a copy of the 5th edition Player's Handbook for Dungeons & Dragons and read about character creation. You can look it up online, actually, for free. You don't even have to buy it. Again, the more you know about that and how that actually plays, the better off you're going to be. Because one of the things I want to mention right off the bat, and again, why I'm starting here, it's not super friendly as far as like new players go, because you need this background knowledge of Dungeons and Dragons for this to be a good character creation screen for you. A lot of this information isn't wholly explained. It's not bad. It's just that, like, you know, if you don't know a lot about how Dungeons and Dragons as an RPG plays in the 5th edition, you're probably not going to glean a lot of information from this character creation screen and some of the choices you are making. Some of it's pretty obvious. I feel like the race and the the racial abilities and stuff that you get to your stat bonuses, stuff like that, I think most people are going to gather that. What I'm concerned about people understanding is necessarily like proficiencies, or how your character's background affects proficiencies, like just stuff like that. I don't necessarily think people are going to, at a glance, understand that if they are new to Dungeons and Dragons. So if you're waiting, do yourself a favor, brush up on what that looks like, and you'll probably be a lot better off when this game actually launches, because right now it is not very new player friendly. From there, we have our intro, and it's really strong. I like the intro to this game. And then the problem is it drops off like right after that. So once you actually get full control to explore the world, it kind of dies off action-wise. It goes from like action-packed beginning to like, all right, I guess we got to look for a healer or somebody who can help us out with these tadpoles in our head. So let's get on with that. So you just kind of start roaming around, and it's a little slow. I'm like 5 hours in, and it's still kind of slow-paced. But that said, the introduction is really strong. All of the origin characters, which you can't play right now, they are not available in early access to play. But the origin characters, you can meet and interact with them, and they're really cool for the most part. Some of them I'm not wild about, but that's a personal preference. I mean, you'll either like them or you won't. But you do get to meet and use all of them and kind of engage in their quests, which is interesting. And so far, because all of those characters are so varied in terms of like races and stuff, I did want to say that the world building Larian had done in the game so far has been very strong, as far as things like, the actual gods, the way things work, the way they function, all very well put together that I've seen so far. But again, pretty early as far as the game goes, so hard to make a broad assessment of that, but so far it's good. So things I want to mention as far as combat goes, you need to understand that this is not Divinity Original Sin 2. It plays by Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition rule set. So basically you get movements, actions, possibly reactions if it's not your turn, and bonus actions on your turn. You basically get to attack once, move, and possibly take bonus actions depending on what your character's got going on. And that's pretty much your turn, as opposed to, say, Divinity's possibility of moving or attacking multiple times. In Dungeons & Dragons, it's split. You can move with a move bar or whatever, depending on your own character's movement speed and whatnot. And then you can take one action, which, typically it's one action. There are things that will get you more, but typically speaking, just the one. And that's pretty much it. So when it comes to combat, expect that to be handled very differently than Divinity Original Sin 2, which Larian is most famously known for. Which again brings me back to the more you know about Dungeons & Dragons prior to playing this game, the better off you'll be. Which again just kind of adds to my general concern about new players coming into this. Because if you're not somebody like me who plays a ton of these games, or somebody who plays a ton of Dungeons & Dragons, for instance, you're probably going to be a little lost when you first pick this up, which I feel like is going to lead towards frustrating experiences for new players. Now, as far as exploring the world goes, I did want to mention that passive checks, like say if you were actually playing a session of Dungeons & Dragons, like say you walk into a room and you want to look around, say you walk into like a dungeon room, you want to look for traps or something like that, they would be like, all right, roll this check. Well, the game does that automatically for you through the passive checks. So basically the game's already decided when you walk into a room if your character should be noticing anything, and it'll just passively make that check. And you can see an icon above your head when that passive roll is going on, and it'll happen for each one of the characters in your party. And it'll either fail or exceed, and then you'll notice the thing that you either would notice because you had the ability to do so, or you won't, and you'll see the failed check. So even if you don't pass that check, you'll know something was there to discover, which is the more passive part of rolling the dice. And then there's the more active part of it. So when you're in conversations and things, you'll be making deception, intimidation, persuasion, just all sorts of checks based on your skills relevant to the moment. When that happens, you will be able to roll a dice, a die 20, for whatever it is. It'll show you the target that you need to beat to actually pass the check, and then it will literally roll the dice. So what I like about this is that there's actually a lot more going on here than you would initially assume. So if it is a skill that you would have advantage on, you can roll the dice twice like you would if you had advantage in the tabletop game. So if you fail it, but you have advantage, you can roll it again and take the better of the two, and ideally pass it if you can get above the target. The other thing I want to mention, because it is not very visually notated, if you have a proficiency in a skill, you'll have a lower target to beat. So say, for me, I actually rolled a character who had proficiencies in like deception checks. So anytime I would try to deceive someone, my target to beat for that deception check is lower than somebody who would be rolling it without the deception proficiency. So you see a lot of that actively going on in the world, which I think helps really build it in a fun way for the people who are used to Dungeons and Dragons, but also I think people who are not used to playing the game will also find it enjoyable if they're picking this game up. So I guess the last thing I want to mention to wrap this up is currently you can only really play on normal. I didn't notice anywhere that you could change the difficulty, but on your save files, it does say normal difficulty, so I assume they're going to be adding difficulties to play at some point. The main thing I want to mention is that the thing I think people are going to find the most jarring compared to Divinity Original Sin 2, and one of the things that concerns me a little bit with them adding the difficulty levels, if they do, is that the dice can roll so poorly for you that it's possible for you to die to a random encounter that should have been easy. For instance, I don't have footage of it, but I was exploring this little crypt area, like right near where you start the game at, and despite having an 85% chance to hit, I missed 3 times in a row, and I actually wiped. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on. And in my opinion, because people insist on comparing this game to Divinity Original Sin 2, because that was also made by Larian, in a game like that, there are ways to set yourself up for success where it's basically not as open to chance as Dungeons and Dragons is. Reality is, in this game, if the dice don't roll your way, you're going to have a bad time. So saving before fights, if you know they're coming, and then reloading is probably going to happen a lot, because you could do the exact same thing twice and roll vastly differently every time. And because this isn't live tabletop and save scumming is a thing, I think people are going to wind up doing that a lot. And I guess we'll see how that plays out. I don't think necessarily everyone is going to enjoy that aspect of it, the save scumming, I mean, because you know it's going to happen, let's be real. There you go, guys. Some of my first thoughts and impressions of Baldur's Gate 3. Nothing too crazy, just kind of wanted to share with you guys some of the things I had initially noticed. My next video up, I will probably be taking a more focused look at character creation, kind of showing people what's available, what it looks like, is it fun, that kind of thing, what all you can do with it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you like, comment, subscribe, and stick around. But either way, may you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.